beloved and holy and only child of our Heavenly Father, child of the one source, child of light, divine. That is who you are. Take it deeply within the consciousness and contemplate what that means. I am the one known as Jeshua ben Joseph. Jesus, you have called me. And it is in great joy that I come to abide with you this evening in your timing, as you have chosen once again to call me forth. Great joy to behold you in the physical and to see your radiance. Because truly, who and what you are is a radiant being. A radiance of great love. When once you touch that place of home, you know the love that enfolds you. You know the love that walks with you as you and is extended unto all of the world and all of the peoples of the world and beyond. And I use that word advisedly because your world is crying out for love. Your world is in a turmoil because it is birthing itself in remembrance. It is birthing the Christ of itself. And right now there is much of energy that is upheaving, in upheavals. And many of the brothers and sisters do not know the love of home, and yet they seek it. And when you pass by, or when you stop and you smile at them, they have a chance to open up all of that which you have called the chakras, and to open up the heart to know once again from whence they have come and from whence they will return. To whence? I'll ask beloved Holy Scribe if that is good English. When he does his transcribing, he will probably change it a bit. He has my permission. Because truly, as you have acknowledged and as you would acknowledge, your language is not the language that I grew up speaking. And it is a wonderful language. The idioms that you have in your language, I have great joy in trying to decipher some of them. When you speak of something as being most enjoyable, and you speak of it as being cool, and then the next thing you turn around and you say, oh, that is really hot. So I say, choose one or the other. Which is it? Is it cool or is it really hot? It depends what generation, exactly. And each generation, as you have noticed, makes their own language. And sometimes you tune into it and you try to learn. There is a most wonderful thing that I have observed when you do with the little fingers on this tiny little square rectangular thing, and you call it texting. And you go down to abbreviations. And I asked my beloved friend and teacher, I said, okay, LOL, does that mean lots of love? And she said, well, it means whatever you want it to mean, but it can mean laugh out loud. And so what you are doing is making a new language, a very versatile language, because it can mean, depending on the context, which is true with most of your language anyway, it can mean one thing or something totally at the other end of the spectrum, if you want it to be. So it is most wonderful as I watch, especially the young folk, and they are so intent on doing all of this little stuff, or I watch your sometimes a little wiser, older, I will call it older, but it isn't necessarily, and they will use what is called the stick on it. And instead of doing the fingers trying to poke at these little things, they have what they call the stylus. And can pick at the different letters that they want to pick out. It is most wonderful, the versatility. And the person receiving it, wireless, not held by any wire as we used to experience. I did. When I started with my beloved friend and teacher, you may remember, you were there. You were there. And you saw what we had where I was the beloved pet on a leash. I had the microphone was on a very long cord, And every once in a while I would walk and the cord would get stuck under the leg of a chair or something, and I would walk forward and get jerked backwards, just like your beloved pets sometimes when they are on the leash. So I had a moment, or several moments, of feeling in compassion with the beloved pets who are on the leash and most exuberant to go somewhere, and all of a sudden they are pulled backwards. And then they, quote, learn that perhaps the, quote, owner is not all that bright, and they'd better learn to heel. Well, truly, it is an experience now to be wireless and to know that truly your communication is coming to the place of truth, the place of mind-to-mind communication, where you're not even needing to sit there and to text out something with a stylus that will text out the letters that you want, coming to the place where you will be able to, as you see a person, mind-to-mind, and as you don't see a person, over many, many miles. And this happens even in this day and time, because you will think of a person, and you may have a thought about them, and what happens next? They call. Your telephone rings, or there's a buzzer, or whatever it does. That again is most wonderful. I listen to all these tunes that you have that are your announcements that there's something coming for you. And it'll play classical music, it'll play rock, it'll play all energetic stuff. And you pull it out from wherever you have it, or in the purse or whatever, and you look at it and, oh, it's so-and-so. Oh, that's great. I was just thinking of you. Of course. And that happens. Quite often you have experienced it, where you've had a thought about a person. I wonder how they are. Wonder what they're going through. And then they call and they say, well, this is happening and so forth. And you say, I thought something was going on. Of course. Because there is truly only one of us. Even though you have what seems to be the separate bodies, and you seem to be able to look at a body and take in their energy as you understand energy, which is yet sort of confined. But the communication, the common union of communication is there already. And I could, but it wouldn't be as much fun, give you tonight's message just by sitting in the chair there and having you meditate. But this is more fun, because truly I get to walk around and I get to step on your feet and to keep in touch that way. My beloved friend and teacher often says to people when she is concluding perhaps the telephone call with someone or in person, she will say, let's keep in touch. We'll keep in touch. And I have said to her, are you actually reaching out? Are you actually reaching out to them and keeping in touch with the physical touch? Well, sometimes you can do that, but other times it doesn't work that way. But you do keep in touch, yes. And that is why, I digress here, but that is why you enjoy the hugs, because you keep in touch, heart to heart. And you enjoy the energy of another one who is living in the heart. Now, one thing I have noticed is you abide in love quite a lot, quite often, because that is where it feels good. But I have noticed also that sometimes you will get into a place of comparison, a place of separation where there is a small bit of judgment. And judgment does not mean that you're finding fault with someone, although it can be that way. And habitually that's where the generational teaching has brought you, to compare and to say that someone should be doing something differently. And that comes very quickly out of habit. It arises very quickly, and I have seen you deal with it. I have seen you have a thought about someone or something they were doing, something they said perhaps, and there has been the instantaneous judgment of it based on generational teaching or past experience. And then I have seen you step back from it and to say, well, that is just how they are. That is just part of who they think themselves to be. And that is very good. Because truly, everyone is living their life the best that they know how. And there are many times when there is a feeling that is overwhelming as to, am I good enough? And the judgment gets in there and says, well, so-and-so is really better than I am. And I don't feel good knowing that they are better at doing whatever than I am. And that is a human reaction to things. And it is okay that you recognize it. There are times when you will look upon another one and you will say, I wish I could be more like they are. They don't seem to get so ruffled about something, and they just take it all in their stride. Well, maybe they do, or maybe they just keep it to themselves more, and you don't know how they are really feeling on the inside. But it comes to you as a learning tool, because what you see in another one is what you are working towards exhibiting, demonstrating for yourself. And it is good that you have so many teachers as friends. And you look upon them and you see qualities that they have, that they are exhibiting, and you say, that is something I would like. You see, you have now moved out of judgment, where somebody was right and somebody was wrong, or somebody else was more better, which is not good English, I understand. So, beloved Holy Scribe, you get to change that if you want. And then you come to the place where you see everyone as your teacher, one who is exempling for you, something that you can be or do or feel. And you see then that you are not failing, because you are not. You have been at a place where the past experience has talked to you, or the place where the generational teaching has talked to you and said, this is how you should be. That is very deeply ingrained into all human beings because of the smallness. When you start out as the small one, you have to and are dependent upon someone else to feed you, take care of you at first. And you look to them for your very existence. Now, in truth, the spirit of you is what is activating the body. But in the physicality of human life, it works better if you have someone who is nurturing. But you do not always have that. You have chosen lifetimes when you have known the hard knocks from the parents, from the ones who you look to be nurturing, and they did not know how, because they had not known it themselves. That is usually the case that happens, that they have not experienced love and nurturing. Otherwise, they would then be able to pass that on. So they're passing on what they have experienced, or how they have seen the world, and how they have taught themselves that they have to be in order to survive as they understand it. So you have evolved from what your parents knew, and as your parents, they evolved from what they had known as small ones and what the generational teaching was for them. So there is, if anyone has questioned, and I know that you have and ones have questioned, is there any evolution happening? But all you have to do is to look to the parents, look to the grandparents, look farther back in the history, and to understand how they saw life and how now you understand life. And there is evolution of consciousness that is happening. So when you have the messages from entities that seem to be not with body, outside of body perhaps, and they say to you these wonderful messages that there is awakening that is happening upon this plane, and you say, oh yeah, tell me more. My news media says that there is warring going on and you can name all different places. And even with my coworkers and even with the ones that I associate with every day, sometimes they are not the most loving. So I'm not sure that these, quote, entities know what they're talking about. The entities have a more broad view of what is going on than what you have day by day. And it is happening. And you can look at the parents and see where they were coming from, and you can see how you learned from them what not to be. All of the parents, all of the ancestors, all of the ones that you have perhaps even grown up with are your teachers. They are teaching you either positive or teaching you what not to be. And you learn sometimes, most readily, from what not to be. And you experience, especially with the parents, a lot of the lessons that you grow through. At first, when you seem to be dependent upon the parents, you accept their view of the world for a while. But then you begin to ask, and all of you have done this, is there not a better way? Can there not be a way where I feel at ease and other ones feel at ease in my presence? Can I not, and you can, exhibit the loving behavior and have it accepted? And you have tried this, and yes, you have found sometimes ones will not accept it because their teaching has been different than yours. And sometimes you are in a great place of love and they don't want it. And you say, well, what's wrong with me? That is usually the habitual first thing that comes to mind. What's wrong with me? Nothing is ever wrong with you. But you have bought and paid dearly sometimes the gift which has taught you what not to be and what not to assume for yourself. Because you are much more than any of the human tendencies, the greatest of which is love. You seek it and you seek to give it. And sometimes, as I've said, ones don't know how to receive it. They have not opened themselves to it. They have not even perhaps experienced it. And so when you try to give them the hug, and they step back and you almost fall over because you've lost your balance. Any of you experienced that? When you go up to someone and you want to give them a hug, you're really happy to see them, and they step back and you almost fall into their arms, and then you feel most embarrassed because you did something that they weren't expecting. And I say to you, I'm glad that you did that, because truly you are showing them another way to be. And perhaps, somewhere down the road, they will be wanting that hug. And they will come and offer you one. It happens. Even though at the time when you have almost lost your balance and fallen right into their face, you think, oh my, how could I have read these signs the wrong way? I thought this one was going to be open to my extending the love. And they will be. What you were doing was reading their innermost desire. What they were doing was reacting from what they have known. And so the twain do not meet at that point, but they do later. And they will later. And you have experienced that, where there have been ones that you thought, oh, that person is a cold fish. Can't get near that one. Whatever I say, there is always a rebuff that comes back. And I don't know where that one's coming from. I've heard that experience, that expression a few times. I don't know where that one's coming from. Well, they're coming from old teaching, old experiences of how they have felt they had to be in order to survive. But you are showing them a new way to be, and that is good. You have a saying in your holy writings where my disciples, some of you, were having a big discussion among themselves about how wrong the Pharisees and Sadducees were, and how some were not observing the letter of the law, and ones were not doing what they should be doing. And after I heard this quibbling going on for a while, I said to you, "What is that to thee? Follow thou me." In other words, you don't have to be looking and criticizing what they are doing. You don't have to be finding fault that they are not perhaps doing exactly what you think they should be doing. Follow the higher teaching. Follow love. Follow the Christ of yourself. And ask of yourself. You have a very good saying that was most popular a few years ago. You even had the little bracelets and what do you call those that you wear around the neck? A necklace type of thing, yes. What would Jesus do? Yes. WWJD. What would Jesus do? What is that to thee? Follow thou me. And I did not mean me as one Jeshua. I meant me as the Christ. Follow the Christ of yourself. Come up higher. Do not be in the petty place of criticism of other ones. You cannot truly criticize another one until you have walked a mile in their sandals. In other words, until you have known their generational teaching and what they have had exampled to them from the parents and maybe even the peers that they have grown up with. Follow thou the Christ of yourself. Come up higher. Do not be down in the gravel with the other ones, finding fault, as perhaps they have done. Allow yourself to see the Christ of them, and to know the Christ of yourself, and to come from that place of love and acceptance of the Christ of them. Often I said to you as my disciples, to look to the Christ of each one of the brothers and sisters, because that is their true being and their true heritage. Even though they may be imbibing of the fruit of the vine a bit much, and to the place where the body is having to rest, to sleep it off, as it is said, or to the place where some get quite uninhibited and will want to prove their goodness to everyone, that I can fight stronger, I can say more powerful words, and they get into behavior that perhaps is not the most loving or peaceful. And you look past that to the place where you see the Christ of them, and you love them, because you know that truly they are living from a place that they understand, that has been example to them by ones who were the way showers, or the ones who were showing them the way not to go. And they will wake up at some point. It may be this lifetime, and one will hope that it is, because it makes life a little bit easier. But it may not be. It may be another lifetime that they come to the place of saying, deep within themselves, I want to live a different way. I want to be loved, and I want to extend love. And you may be present to see that, or you may not. But know that truly the Christ is going to be exampled and demonstrated eventually. Doesn't always happen right away when you would like it to happen. And I know that for many, you try out different relationships with ones, and the one that you sometimes fall head over heels in love with then comes and examples to you behavior that you did not expect, and you have to love the Christ of them even though you may walk out of that relationship. And I have said oftentimes to ones who have asked me, Jeshua, what do I do with this one? How can I love this one? When there is exampling of behavior that is hard to get along with, criticism and even the physical reaching out of one's. And I have said that you do not have to stay in physical proximity with that one. You can love that one from afar. And it may be easier to love that one from afar than if you are right there taking the blows, either physical or emotional. It is okay to move a distance away from a relationship that is not healthy. Sometimes the body and definitely the emotions may be suffering. Therefore, take yourself apart. And I don't mean take all the parts apart, but take yourself away from that situation and love them from a distance. And you will find a most miraculous thing happening. Now, some are more, what is the word I want? Armored in their shell, so that you may or may not see the results of your love. But there are many who will respond as they go through life and come to a place where there can be even the interaction with one, where both of you have grown to a place of love. So it does happen, and you look upon it and you say, well, it's a miracle. I never thought he, she could be that way. And yet, sometimes when you have made the, quote, sacrifice of leaving a relationship, it has been the very thing that they needed to see in order to question their behavior and their outlook on life. So sometimes by what the world has in the past called a failure, and it is, you never have a failure, that behavior, that decision that you make can be the very catalyst that will show that other one, hey, there's another way to live. So do not judge self and say, I should have. The shoulds are very heavy burdens to carry. And you don't need the shoulds or the should nots. Many of your religions and your philosophical way of looking at things have a list of should nots. I prefer the shoulds, if you have to have a should, the ones that enable you to see the good in everything. Because there is good in everything. Now, I know that's not what your world teaches you. Your world will teach you that it is a hard place to be, and you'd better armor yourself. And yes, you can love people, but sometimes you don't show it to them, because what would they think? Well, it might show them a different way of being. And it takes a very strong person, a person who is well satisfied with himself, herself, to come from a place of love and to show that. Because yes, you have been taught as the small ones, what will people think? And you want people to love you. After all, if they love you, then they nurture you. They give you what sustains the body and sometimes the soul. So you want to be loved. And so you want people to like you. You want that positive affirmation from people. And yet, the strongest person is a teacher to other ones by standing in his or her Christ self and living from that place of saying, no matter what the behavior is, no matter what you say, no matter how you judge me, I still see the Christ of you. Because I know that the Christ is what is activating the body. The Christ is what is allowing you to even turn your back on the Christ. And I love that part of you, even though, and you may say or look upon this person, even though that part is as small as the tiny acorn, I still acknowledge that in you. And you may say it out loud, or you may just say it silently to the other person, depending on how the reaction is going to be. You walk this path of humanness in love and in practicality as well. In other words, you don't go around saying to someone, "You are really a bastard, but I love you anyway." Well, you have tried that, and you have seen it doesn't exactly get to the heart of things. So you have learned to walk the human path with love and a bit of intelligence. And when you use intelligence, it doesn't mean that you're becoming a wimp and that you have to couch everything in a way that will be accepted by them. But you use a bit of common sense wisdom to know what they will accept and how they may hear it. And you do not judge them about it because you know that this has been what they have experienced, and they are only acting from a place of what they have experienced. But you don't go trying to goad them into a certain behavior by speaking from a holier-than-thou place. That isn't true love. That is a place that brings up old teachings for them. And you don't need to do that because they've had enough of that. But you do love them, the Christ of them. That is why there is a saying, a greeting, that you have known from ancient times. Namaste. The Christ of me greets the Christ of you. The divinity of me acknowledges the divinity of you. And when you can live in that vibration, and you do, it is felt by others, and it is like the watering to the plant that is dying of thirst. Because all of the brothers and sisters want to be loved. They don't know how to get it sometimes, and they will try to come in the back door and be the most horrible acting, cantankerous type of being, and yet they are the ones that are calling out most loudly for your love and your acceptance, and even for your teaching as you example how you can stand in your love with them. You have all had experiences in relationships where you have been with ones who did not know how valued they are, did not know the Christ of themselves, did not know that it was truly safe to live in love. And you have perhaps taken the body, your body, and walked out of the situation because that is what was truly a teaching tool. And it was necessary for your health and for the other one as well, because as long as you were in that situation, you were not helping them. And you were certainly not helping yourself. And as I have said, you can go and be in the next room, you can be in the next county, the next city, even the next state or country, and still love them. Because truly you are joined, mind to mind and heart to heart. So as we spoke very early in this message with your telecommunications, your mind is the most advanced piece of telecommunications. And you are sending to them, especially if you don't have to be face to face with the behavior, you are sending to them the love and the nurturing that they truly are seeking. So when you find yourself in that place, and I know that you don't, but if you would find yourself in a place where you might be saying, well, they should be doing X, Y, and Z, or how can they be so absorbed in that kind of thinking, and you find yourself in separation from them, in judgment, what is that to thee? Truly it does not matter to you. Follow thou me. Come up higher in the love. And I know that I am, as you have a saying in your world, I am preaching to the choir. In other words, you've heard this over and over many times, and yet your world still has much of judgment in it. Your news media brings you stories every day of judgment. And when you watch your news media, and I would suggest that you watch it from time to time just to see what is going on. Send love to them. You don't have to buy everything they are selling or giving to you. But watch it from time to time to know where they are. And you will see, over time, a change, even in your news media, that loves to bring you stories which hook you into the disciples' judgment of others. And when you have watched 5 minutes of it, yes, you can say, what is that to me? I love every one of my brothers and sisters. They are doing the best that they know how. They're doing the best that has brought them rewards. And when they know something better, they will choose for something better. Meantime, I love the Christ of them because I know who they are. Capital W. I know that which they are. Capital T, capital W. I have heard your discussions. And again, what is that to thee? Follow thou me. It is very easy to get into a place of judgment of right and wrong. And truly nothing is ever wrong. There are different viewpoints. But in the end, what is that? Follow thou me. Come up to the place of love, the place of the Christ. Follow the Christ leading. A wise man once said, whenever you find yourself in a place where you have been in separation, where you have been making judgment, ask of yourself, how is this going to be? How am I going to feel about this in 100 years? Gives a new perspective. Follow the Christ. So be it.